Spoiler warning for the Call of Cthulhu module, The Haunting. A few weeks back I tried out Call of Cthulhu for the first time, and it's a tabletop RPG in the 1920s based on investigations and Lovecraftian creatures. I decided to run the module that comes with the starter rolls, and I ended up having my first TPK ever. You're probably thinking, oh, I know how that went, it's Call of Cthulhu. Trust me, it didn't go like you think. The party consisted of James, the journalist of the group, Jackson, a mafioso, Sean, the private investigator, and lastly we have Scott, the professor. The group was hired by a landlord named Mr. Knott to check out a house that had suspicious happenings before he sold it to a buyer. The players immediately began investigating around the city of Boston, and in addition to the normal information they received about the house, they also learned about an unrelated person named the Aquarium Murderer, who lured people to aquariums before killing them and dumping the body in the water. This will be important later, I promise. After learning as much as they could, the party headed out to the house. As they arrived, it was beginning to get dark. They entered through the front door and began checking it out. They found a doll in the living room on the main floor, and as they were looking at it, the doll got up and ran away. The party continued to search the main floor until they found the stairs going up and down, with the downstairs door having 3 bolt locks on it from the outside. The party splits up and leaves Sean to guard the upstairs door with his pistol. Meanwhile, Scott, James, and Jackson go downstairs to the basement. The basement is covered in rusty nails, screws, other metal fragments, and a single trash can lid. Sean then sees the door to the upper floor open on its own, and he calls for the rest of the group to come up. Scott and Jackson run back up to help him. Meanwhile, James continues downstairs into the basement, where he searches through the mess to find anything useful. He finds an ornate knife that is covered in a thick coat of rust. He goes to pick it up, but it rises off the ground and stabs him in the chest, downing him and giving him a major wound. Jackson, hearing his friend cry out in fear and pain, runs down the stairs to help him. Scott closes and bolts the door to the basement, trapping Jackson and James downstairs. Jackson finds James and begins to pull him up the stairs to safety while fighting off the knife. As he gets to the top of the stairs, he tries to open the door, but Scott had locked it, so he begins to shout for Scott to open it for them. Scott complies, but Jackson gets stabbed twice while waiting. Jackson is now near death, and James is slowly bleeding out. Jackson takes James out of the house to the car, and begins to drive them back to a hospital. Jackson gets a critical failure on his drive roll, and they get into a car crash that kills both Jackson and James. Meanwhile, Scott and Sean go upstairs and continue exploring. They find a children's bedroom which has the doll from earlier sitting on the bed. Sean points his gun at it, ready to shoot at the first sign of movement. He tells Scott to close the door and check out the other room while he handles this. Scott listens to him and heads to the other room, where he hears scratching on the window. He walks over to the window to check out what the noise is, and the bed frame lifts into the air and flings itself at him, launching him out the window to the ground below. He barely survives the fall, but he manages to get back up and begin to go inside the house again. As he enters, he hears a voice inside his head telling him to get the knife and kill Sean. He complies and grabs the knife and heads upstairs. He opens the door to the bedroom that Sean is still standing in and tries to stab him in the back, but Sean spins around in time and shoots Scott. Scott somehow survives this and then snaps him out of his insanity. They then climb out of one of the windows to get out of the house and run back to their hotel. As they arrive, Sean talks to Mr. Knott. Meanwhile, Scott goes and talks to a person in the corner of the room. He is an old man who is doing a crossword, but has Z's written into random boxes and is constantly talking about both aquariums and murder. The old man asks Scott to go to the aquarium with him, and Scott, having not seemed to notice all of the hints that this man is the aquarium murderer from earlier, agrees to go with him. When they get there, the man stabs Scott, and since he was already very low health from the events of the house, the stab kills him. The aquarium murderer dumps Scott in the water and walks away. Sean, having seen that Scott went to the aquarium while he was talking, runs to the aquarium and sees a lot of policemen there. He believes that one of the cops is the murderer, so he draws his pistol to shoot one, and promptly gets killed by the swarm of them. So that's how my first attempt at playing Call of Cthulhu went. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!